Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Crypto Byte. Today is Tuesday, December 28th, and we've got a pretty good episode for you guys today. Bitcoin pulling back a little bit, hitting some critical resistance at 52K, but excited for Mr. CJ Reichel to dive into some technicals today because really it seems like, the technicals are driving this market. Talked a lot about the alts yesterday, some pulling back, some maintaining course. We'll talk about that as well before we dive into things. CJ, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Monty. The S&P is up today, making new all-time highs. Bitcoin, a little bit off, kind of seeing that rejection from the 20 smooth moving average, but still it is hard to put a lot of confidence into this particular price action just because we haven't had a lot of volume. It is still, the holiday season. We are, going to start the month of January, and we're not there yet, even though, a lot of that bullish price action really pumped a lot of people up. But nevertheless, I want to try to break down the charts today and look at things from kind of both sides, try to present an objective view of the market. But first jumping in, we have the S&P now back above that critical upward sloping trend line that really has been the pillar of this trend all throughout 2021 and into the new year here at 2022. So interesting to see that bullish price action. But moving over to Bitcoin here, we are rebounding a little bit to start the morning with the bullish price action kind of all around. However, first I want to start with the bearish case. Last night we were rejected off of that 20 smooth moving average, fell down quite a bit. However, we have still held that downward sloping trend line and have found support at these levels. So we'll see if that holds. We're beginning to see a turn up in divergence. However, keep in mind that is only the 1 hour time frame. So if we are to truly get a bearish close and sellers continue into this market, because in all honesty, there is a lot of shorts in the market. Leverage shorts, that is. And we can go into that in a little bit by just looking at funding rates. But if we are to break this and lose this support from the downward sloping trend line, we could potentially test down lower, from the bearish perspective. However, I don't want to discount the bullish perspective either, because there are a couple signals I want to highlight here as well. First of all, and one that I really like personally, is the Williams alligator. So you see these three moving averages. When you have the bottom band or that green moving average that crosses above the red, that is typically not necessarily a buy signal, but it is a signal that the trend is beginning to change and shift to the other direction. In this case, we would be shifting from negative to positive. Also, we have a TD sequential buy 13 on the countdown phase of the sequential indicator. Personally, I've said before that I think the nines have a tendency to be a little bit more reliable when using the TD sequential indicator and applying it to crypto. Nevertheless, when we look at our previous trends, we can see that green 13s have called the top here. So we'll see if the red 9 can do something similar here for the bulls. But overall, that is a pretty basic breakdown of the bearish and bullish case for Bitcoin here. Like I had mentioned earlier, there's a lot of leverage shorts in the market. We're getting skewed to the downside now, somewhat similar to what we were like in the late summer months. So, even though there's always going to be levered longs, a little bit of levered longs. Monty's smirking because he knows it's true. But there still is some shorts that are pushing down price a little bit here. So, we'll see. We'll see as January, and volume picks up a little bit here as more Wall Street folks come back to their offices.
Come back from the Hamptons, as you like to say, CJ. But yeah, we'll continue to monitor those funding rates and also that open interest ratio, super important stuff. And yeah, I kind of want to, piggyback off that a little bit here and talk about this news article that hit CoinDesk this morning. And the headline, I think, basically tells the story of the recent price action here. And the article says Bitcoin's long-term holders stay strong despite 20K drop from last month's high. And I like this article because there's a couple, Glassnode charts in here that I think are very telling. And I want to start with this one here, which is the total supply held by long-term holders. One thing that you'll notice is that, during periods of bear markets like we had here in May and July, we see long-term holders accumulate Bitcoin. This chart doesn't go back far enough, but at the start of the year here, when we started to see strength, we saw these long-term holders distributing. Right now, we do not see them distributing. These long-term holders are just holding. So it tells us that the sell pressure that we're seeing on the market currently is not the result of these long-term holders capitulating or these long-term holders distributing into shorter-term holders. And one source that I really like to use is Glassnode's HODL waves. And this is a really cool source because it breaks down the Bitcoin entities by age. So you have all these various ages here. You have Bitcoin, that was purchased and moved within 24 hours, 1 day to 1 week, 1 week to 1 month, 1 month to 3 months. And really, anything less than 3 to 6 months is what we classify as short-term holders. Beyond this, you start to get in the realm of long-term holders. And basically, when you look at these waves, if you see an uptick in the amount of color in this area, that means that those coins are moving. Those coins are being spent. So right now, where we're seeing the uptick, where we're seeing the coins moving, is in these younger coins. That tells us that shorter-term holders are the ones providing the sell pressure to this market. Long-term holders believe nothing has fundamentally changed and are continuing to hodl. But these short-term holders that are kind of in this swing trade here that really started to get in on this second leg up, they started to capitulate here. We're seeing them, really contribute to more and more of the sell pressure that we're seeing in this market. And, when you combine that with this report here that long-term holders are, not necessarily selling, I think it tells us exactly where the sell pressure is coming from. Last chart here from Glassnode Alerts on Twitter. Great follow if you don't follow them. But the Bitcoin percent supply last active 5+ years ago, so meaning coins that haven't moved in 5 years, just reached an all-time high of 23%. So it tells us that people are hodling. Long-term holders, sometimes characterized as the smart money, are still holding Bitcoin. And I think that makes sense. Last thing I'll say is that, one thing that's super important to consider is the price action in the weeks that preceded what we're seeing now. One thing that is the most noteworthy event in the last 3 weeks was the liquidation event we saw at the beginning of December. When you have this sort of leverage being flushed out of the market and this sort of move in a 10-minute period, it gives these short-term holders that bought here, these 24-hour, 1 day, 1 week, 1 week, 1 month, 1 month to 3 months, all these guys down here, it gives them very little time to sell in profit because the market corrected so quickly. So they're holding here, and each time we come up and retest critical levels, they are quick to capitulate. I think we're seeing that here in the HODL waves, an uptick in the movement and the selling, telling us that this, sell pressure as we retest these 52K levels is the result of short-term holders taking profit. So getting above this level, I think, is going to be very, very critical for the trend. I think that's, supported by this CoinDesk article talking about the role that long-term holders are playing and the role that short-term holders, are obviously playing in this market as well. But ultimately, I think that 52, 53K is that final hurdle that we need to get over, CJ. So we'll be watching that closely here as we wrap up this holiday week. But that's all I got for Bitcoin, so I'll pass it back to you, CJ.
Thanks, Monty. Good stuff. If you guys enjoyed the show and you'd like to see what me and Monty trade and what we have in our personal portfolios on a daily basis, make sure you can check out the link in the description below. Make sure to like and subscribe. That helps us and the channel quite a bit. But thank you guys for watching so much today. Also want to say thank you to the sponsor of this show, being Voyager Brokerage. You can get up to 9% interest on USDC with that new debit card that they're working on coming out. So excited for that stuff in the works, as well as the Europe expansion in the next coming months, hopefully. So awesome stuff. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great day. We'll see you next time.
Take care.